Yo, 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 what's up, everybody? It's comedian Edgar Rivera, and I would like to welcome you all to another episode of Brothers in Arms, basically a new way for men to talk. And I got my brothers here today, Eric, Dr. Dan. What's up, brothers?
Good to see you, Edgar.
Greetings, Edgar Rivera. It's good to see you.
I want everybody listening that we did that introduction like 10 times, and now everybody was already tired. And,
listen, this is part of what we talk about on this show. We talk about what stresses men out, and this stressed Edgar out.
Exactly.
Yes, a strong introduction stressed him out.
No,
he had to withdraw. He almost withdrew from announcing.
I almost did. It almost started just like this. But it's funny because it stresses me out because once I know I could do it again, oh my God, it's like leaving somebody a voicemail. You ever listen to that? That's the worst mistake you could do, is leaving someone a voicemail and listening to that voicemail. Because I don't know about you guys, I'll keep on doing it over and over again. But we're here. What's up, brothers? How's everything, man? How's this week? How's what's going on, Eric? How's everything?
Things are good, man. Finishing school this week. I'm enjoying the summer. A little worried. Again, this whole Delta variant. I don't know what to believe with the Delta variant. We're back to masks now. So,
Yep.
I was just getting over showing my face in public again. And now we're back to this. So, a little worried about that. But otherwise, I can't complain. Happy to be here. How you doing, Dr. Dan?
I'm doing great. And I have to say, like, with all the masks, being off and stuff, it just felt like everybody had beards, and then suddenly they didn't. It just had a clean-shaven face all of a sudden.
I got used to the mask. I really enjoy the mask because I got like, I don't have to worry about my smile. I don't have to worry about. But then one thing that I did start doing was I started making faces behind the mask because no one sees that, So I have a mask on. I'm like this. Because no one sees that, and the other day it happened, and I didn't have a mask on. But it's crazy, man. This whole Corona thing is I don't know where we're going, man. Doc, do you have any advice on this? I don't know.
Well, actually, I was thinking about what you were saying, and I felt that too. Having the mask on, in a weird way, was like a comfort. Because it was like, we all feel so exposed, and there is a way in which just having, a way where people just can't really see what's going on with you, it's weirdly a comfort. In fact, I think the pandemic, as horrible as it was and is, in certain ways, I think some people took some comfort in all kinds of things. Like, well, now I don't have to like go out all the time. Now I don't have to respond to everybody all the time. There was a lot of things that took the pressure off. I'm not saying the pandemic is a good thing, but I'm just saying.
Well, I think stretch pants hit an all-time high in the United States for sure. And I think people stopped caring as much about their appearance, which is a very stressful thing to think about because, when you're out in public all the time, you're always concerned about how you look. There was something strangely comforting about really not worrying about what you look like, basically. As long as you sounded good and you weren't drinking on your Zoom calls at work, you were fine. But
one thing you never heard during the pandemic: do I have food in my mouth, my teeth? You never had to worry about that. You could eat broccoli in comfort, man. But I'm happy to be back with you guys, man. This is episode 4. Thank you all who have listened so far. Thank you all who have followed, who gave me great feedback on it. It's a work in progress. We learning every week we do this. We get better and better. As you notice, now we got blue lights. It's amazing. But we're getting better and better. But I am getting a lot of feedback. And I wanted to take this time, Dr. Dan, because like we said in the last episode, people want to know your kind of work and everything else. And I've gotten a few questions on viewers who are, that just have questions, and I got a good question the other day, and I wanted to bring up this question to you now so we could get right off the bat, right? So the question was, when you're trying to help someone, right? Like, let's say, not necessarily help, but like if you see someone and you could tell deep down inside that something is bothering them, and you ask that person, and they tell you, no, everything is okay, like we all do, because we never share, right? So everything is okay, and then you keep on, like sometimes we have those little intuitions, like, man, what's wrong with you? Something's really bothering you. No, I'm okay, and then life goes on. So I'll ask you today 3 or 4 times, but then my life goes on, and then I worry about my stuff, and then I forget about it. So my question was, and the viewer's question was, how much should you try?
Yeah, it's a great question, and the unsatisfying basic answer is that it depends. But I'm gonna say more why. First of all, I think that it's good for people to err on the side of trying to communicate anyway. There's really not a lot of harm done if you ask more than once. Always ask more than once. You know, I have a running joke with some of my patients. We start a session and I say, how are you? And they say they're fine. And I'm like, okay, we're past the American, how are you? Now, how are you? You know, where we get to the real thing. And it's the same thing in situations like that. Probably at least half the time, somebody says they're fine, and then you say, no, really, I want to know. At least half the time, that's enough of a breakthrough. But I'll put in another plug for something. If it's not enough of a breakthrough, they at least know that you're out there, that you're wondering. It could make them think, you know, next time I'm going to open up. And maybe it's not even with you. Maybe it's the next person that asks them how they are, and then they open up. So you're still laying the groundwork for communication. Anytime you kind of push through. One other little tip for people is, and you have to gauge the situation to see if this is comfortable, but sometimes people feel more comfortable opening up when you've opened up to them first. So it's another thing that you can do if you really want to help somebody and you feel like they want to talk, but they're not ready to or something, then you share something with them. It's kind of like our Walk the Walk segment, which we're going to do later. We do every show. It promotes the possibility that they could say, oh, well, if you're sharing this with me, okay, then I can share something with you. So I would say never stop trying. You never know how much it's going to mean to somebody that you tried. I've even heard people say years later, I never said anything to you about that, but the fact that you even asked me that meant a lot to me. You don't know.
It's true. You open, and it's crazy because you said when you ask someone how they doing, that, you know, or someone, hey, how are you? And everybody's, I'm good. You know, I tend to tell people, I'm all right. No, you know, I can't complain. No one listens. And then if they give you a reaction, that means they were actually listening, you know, because most of the time people don't vent out like that. But see, my concern is for the people who feel like there's really something going on, but at the end of the day, we're all human. We all got issues. We all got our lives. We all got our problems. You know what I'm saying? So like if I'm worried about Eric today, and I'm like, Eric, you okay? Eric, you okay? You okay? And then I my fear is I fade away into my own reality, and then, you know, like, how often should you check up on this person if you're feeling that way? You know, is there another, like you said, it's good to come out first and open that, you know, build that bridge where I'll tell you something, and then hopefully in return you tell me something. And whoever's listening, just because you share something and they don't share something with you back doesn't mean that they don't care about you. Maybe they're not ready, but it's like Dr. Dan says, you're already building that bridge. Now they feel comfortable because I expose myself to you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Edgar, I want you to know, I'm sorry. You could reach out and worry about me every day and expose yourself to me every day.
It's never too much.
It's never too much to call and expose yourself to me anytime.
This is going in a direction I did not expect.
Anytime. I'm sorry, Dr. Dan, you go.
No, that's fine. Well, what I was thinking there is, I find it's helpful to just feel like, you know, when you've got somebody who's upset and you can tell, try to keep them on your radar a little bit. Listen, we all have busy lives. We all have a lot to do, but this is totally true. I keep a list on my phone of people who I just want to check in with and how often I want to check in. It sounds ridiculous, but it's like, I just am like, I want that person to know that I am thinking about them often enough. And I'm not even talking about people who are like in trouble or I'm worried about them. I'm just like, this person, I check in this often. And it doesn't always work out that way, but at least I have the intentionality to do it. And I definitely think if you want to show somebody that you really are interested, check in with them once a week. Or if it's Eric, every day.
Yes, every day. Exposing yourself.
I could expose myself
I'm just
to
saying,
every
you put it out there.
Day.
But that's a good question, Edgar, because, you know, sometimes, especially I think men, we're more reluctant to ask more than once because one of our boys is like, I'm all right. Oh, okay.
That's it. He said he's all right.
We'll really, yeah, because we kind of expect the same thing when we give the reaction, you know, but that second question, that third question is the one that goes, okay, he just doesn't want to know the like you said, the political American, hey, what's up kind of answer, Dan, you were talking about.
Yeah.
I have a follow-up question, actually, off Edgar's question. If unless you have another one.
No, go ahead.
See, my question's on the other side for you, Dr. Dan, is because most of us, you know, most people that have a soul are going to approach someone that they see as suffering. They're going to try to converse with them. My question to you is, what are some of the things we should not say? What are some of the approaches we should avoid? Thinking that we're going to do good and we may end up doing worse unintentionally, because I think most people will ask their boys if something's wrong with them, but we may end up saying something that could possibly make it worse by accident. Is there anything like that? Is there an approach we should avoid?
That's a great question. I have a question for you in response first, and then I'll answer that.
Sure.
Are there things you're thinking of that you're worried about, or that you've seen haven't worked? Did you have anything in mind about it?
I think from, I've seen I know it's rough, but other people have it worse than you kind of approach.
Yes. Okay.
And I'm like, well, really, thank you. That doesn't seem to work, but it seems to be a lot more common now, especially since everyone across the board in the entire globe is dealing with some kind of loss on some level. No one is in the past year and a half hasn't had some kind of loss, whether it's financial, emotional, whatever. So it's easy. I could see how it's easy for people to say, look, a lot of people have it rough, but I just don't think that makes that person feel better, and it kind of minimizes their feelings.
No, it makes it significantly worse, because it a big thing that people struggle with when they're not feeling good is they're being entitled to feel bad, to have a hard time. And, we talk about like first world problems, or we talk about, having perspective. I was just talking to somebody about this recently, and I'm going to steal it from her, but I'm giving her credit. It's not really for me. She said, you know what? We need perspective, but we also need to be, to have self-compassion. You got to have both. And I think you want to err on the side of, let's put perspective away for a little bit. We don't need perspective every single moment. Like if we lose perspective and we're always in our own problems, that's a problem. But really what we need is a lot of self-compassion. If you are thinking, I wonder if this person's okay, and this is a hard thing to say, but I really believe it. Nobody's okay. Almost all the time, nobody's okay. In fact, if somebody's truly okay, you're going to hear about it, because it's a different thing. They'll talk about that. So I would go from the assumption that everybody is facing a hard battle. That Plato quote that I talked about. Everyone is facing a hard battle, and you do not want to take it out of their personal zone and say, everybody's got it hard, or, here's some perspective. Nobody needs a lesson. And nobody asked you to give a lesson. Exactly. Listen. Have the focus be listening and not talking. Mm-hmm. Whatever you say after you've listened is going to be better than whatever you came in planning to say. Does that make sense?
Because I think when you listen, right? Obviously, you just said it. Listening is the one thing that we should definitely do. Listen. And I think if we say something like what Eric just said, oh, you know what? You're not the only one. Other people have it worse than you. Then that could be a shutdown. Then that person is going to be like, God knows how many times that person's heard that, and it shuts them down. Like, that's it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, for example, I'll use my son. I have a son. I have a 27-year-old son. We don't see eye to eye half the time. But I feel like sometimes when I talk to him about something, it sounds like a lecture. And automatically triggers him off. Now he doesn't want to hear it to dad. He doesn't want to hear that, So I feel like sometimes we got to see what triggers people off when we're trying to help them, what not to say. Not everybody's the same, you know what I'm saying? That comment, someone might have it rough than you. That might help some people. We are all different. But most of the time, we got to find those little triggers and not sound like we're lecturing them.
You know what else you can do is pay attention. It's okay to say things and make mistakes. Don't be afraid to make the mistakes. It's better to say something and make a mistake. But watch. If you see the person shut down, then you can be like, oh, hold on. I realized something. That helps some people, but maybe it wouldn't help you. Yeah. So pay attention to the shutdown. It's actually, you guys are comedians. It's the same thing with improv. Like, first rule of improv is you always say yes. If you see somebody get shut down and you want to make it funny again, you got to open it back up again. So go ahead back and get back in there.
You got to read
the way,
crowd.
Edgar, I don't care if you gave your lesson. I don't give you if you put on a TED talk that was prepared by Jeff Bezos himself. your son would still say, I'm not listening. Okay. let's just put this, because you can't compare talking. He'll shut it down regardless. You can have a TED talk with dances and it all makes sense. And you got charts, and he's going to be like, shut up, Dad.
But it sounds like this.
Shut up. It sounds like you're lecturing me. So
exactly. And it's crazy. This could be a whole different topic for another episode on what parents have, like, the way to deal with your kids nowadays. Nowadays everybody's like so touchy. And with my son, I realized that the day that I call him and I treat him like my best friend, hey, what's up, bro? How you doing? And I talk to him and boom, the best. But I really see as a father with him, I see how I could trigger it just by saying one word or one question. And then half the time when we're trying to help people out, we do sound like we're lecturing. And it shouldn't sound like that. And then I, for one, could say that I sound like I'm lecturing. And I really don't mean it like a lecture. I'm just trying to help you. But, that's when I realized how you can't help everyone the same way. You have to learn to adapt.
Yeah,
to every person.
but listen, here's another thing. If you do have a lecture, and it's okay. Sometimes people actually need those. Bring it in after 5 minutes of listening. Start off with listening always. That's the way you can get people to really open up, and it's also the way you can gather information on what is going to work here.
Yeah, I think sometimes when we talk to people who give advice without listening first, I honestly think it's about them making themselves feel better than making the person in front of them feel better. It's almost like they feel like, well, I have to say something because I see something's wrong with you, instead of just let me talk and let you know what's wrong before you offer all this advice that maybe is completely off the mark, maybe has nothing to do with what I'm thinking. So I'm always wary of people that offer advice without listening first, because I think it's about them trying to make themselves feel better. In my opinion, it's just my opinion.
True. That's a good point. No, that is a good point. It's about them trying to make themselves feel better.
Because they're uncomfortable. Sometimes they're uncomfortable, and they think if they're going to make you feel better with some kind of rah-rah pom-pom speech, and then we can go back to regular life. And it's like, listen, man, it's not about you. But that's why, like you said, Dan, you start with listening. That's the foundation. Everything can build off that. And you can build anything if the foundation's solid, but you got to start with listening. That's the foundation.
So actually, I was thinking, speaking of listening, we're going to get into old news. You ready? You want me to say it the way that I did? You guys love the way I say it.
Segue.
That was the perfect segue. Real quick, before we get into old news, Dr. Dan, I want to tell the listeners, man, thank you for the questions. If you have any questions, any concerns, please go in the comments. Comment on the video, right under, man. Either Dr. Dan, Eric, myself will reply. If you have a problem, you don't, maybe just write it down, man. We'll talk about it on the air. Those are great questions. Hopefully next week we'll come back, because we got to educate people. And the fact that we have Dr. Dan here, Eric, it's like
free of charge, ladies and gentlemen. You are talking to a doctor free of charge. Do not waste this opportunity. Latinos, we like stuff that is free.
And this is free. So please comment on the bottom, subscribe, like, and share. And let's go, Dr. Dan. Let's get into this old news. Eric, do that thing again.
Old news, maybe from yesterday. All right. So the news that I think we, every time when we talk about this show and we kind of figure out where might we want to talk about things, the thing that jumped out at us was not even an issue that seemed like it related to men at first, because it was about Simone Biles withdrawing from the Olympics for mental health reasons. I mean, we're thinking about mental health, and this show does not have to only be about men and mental health, but I thought there was something really important about that, and then it reminded me that there have been all these men, and we've been talking about it in various ways in society. There was Dak Prescott, the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys, who talked about being depressed before last year, and then he got injured, so we didn't get to see his season after that. There's Kevin Love in the NBA, who's really talked about it, and these are really brave things to do. And then in comedy, we all remember when Dave Chappelle stepped away from the Chappelle show. Mm-hmm. We were like, what's happening? This is the greatest show ever. Why don't you love it? And it's like he was living a whole different experience. So there are people in all walks of life that are struggling with these things. And I just kind of wanted to give a shout out to people who actually say it out loud, especially, it's hard for these famous people to go ahead and say that because there's going to be a lot of commentary. I'm just curious what you guys thought about what happened with Simone Biles and what you've thought about with Dak Prescott, Kevin Love.
Well, I don't know
Chappelle.
about the other two because I don't know nothing about sports. So Prescott and Love, yeah. But Simone, I think she's not the only one. Honestly, I've been watching the Olympics and Dr. Dan, I don't know if you cried at the Olympics, but those moments when they get those gold medals, those are the most emotional moments to me. But I think she's not the only one. So when we talked about this and we brought her up, right, I got to give her the courage for actually stepping forward and doing it, because I'm thinking about all the men who probably feel like that, the same way she feels, but they're afraid to step forward and they're afraid to cross that line and seem like you're giving up when deep down inside we're just having issues. So I give her the credit for stepping forward, but now I'm more concerned for the guys that are there that are like living, because it hasn't been an easy Olympic. It hasn't been like normal. There's no fans, there's no support. Those people out there by themselves, pollution, they're complaining about everything. So I could only imagine what she's going through. Have you read on it where mentally you know where she's at?
I really haven't. I have not gotten to read that much. I'm just running from one thing to the next, so it's sometimes hard to get the information. But I think mostly what I'm hearing about is what the response is to it. And it's so interesting because people are like responding one way or another as if that matters at all. What really matters is what's happening for her.
Well, I think the response, I think she's been a lot more defended. I think people are becoming more and more open-minded about what mental health is and mental wellness is. And it's not that she's ill. She just wasn't in the right place. I mean, literally Simone Biles said she forgot how to twist. She got the twisties. Okay. That's like the yips. If you can't throw a ball, but she can't twist her legs. If you think of the complexity of gymnastics. So, and also give Naomi Osaka a little credit for, I think, even putting this on the forefront in sports, even before the Olympics, when she backed out of it, I believe it was Wimbledon, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so.
And because she was dealing with
her
own
like,
issues.
sure, whatever.
Right. That's a question I'll ask you next time to break the mold. But but to shift it back to the male athletes that have come before them, because I actually think the reaction has been mixed. You're right, Dr. Dan, but people are coming down on the people that have been reacting negatively, saying you got to push through it. People have been backing her up in a way that I think you didn't see previously. Like you're seeing like a rallying. They're actually saying how brave she is and you can't fill her shoes and how could you know how she feels kind of reaction, which I'm actually happy to see, because that means at least people are acknowledging that this is an issue. I think it's harder just as a male in a male-dominated sport. Like you said, Kevin Love, like you said, Dak Prescott, DeMar DeRozan is another one. He doesn't get as much credit. He's a basketball player who came out quite frankly about depression. And because of him, there is now at least one mental health professional on every NBA team, some kind of counselor, some kind of therapist before the 2019-2020 season, if I'm not mistaken. So there have been athletes that have come out. My thing is, we've had these like T-Pain, a rapper, came out and talked about he was living with depression for 4 years because someone ragged on his music. So, so we're having these prominent athletes and men who live in an urban society and hip hop, who you would think if they're coming out and talking about it, why isn't it still more open to talk about it? When you have Ryan Reynolds comes clean about his depression, he's Deadpool. We can't talk about depression and Deadpool can. You know what I mean? So what is the wall? I mean, that to me is the curious part, because we've had these men talk about this and it's still not as common as it should be. What do we need to do to get there?
So, I was thinking about that as you were talking, and my answer might surprise you because it's not a very psychological one, actually. It is
good, because I'm not smart. It needs to be
all right. Well, then then you'll like this one. It's a totally practical one. You have to just keep talking. The more that we say these things, the more used to it people get. It's like, the concept of the tipping point. It's like at a certain, you keep moving and moving and moving, and at a certain point, society catches on, and they're done with it. It happened. When Barack Obama was elected, that was a tipping point moment, because 2 years before that, if you asked anybody, would an African American ever be president, we were living in a world where it sure didn't seem that way, you know, and then there was a tipping point. The good news here is we are getting close to that tipping point. And one thing that I think is important is that we all speak out about supporting the people who do come out and talk in this way. So when Dak Prescott talked about his depression, there was like one of these hot take moments. Edgar, you won't know who this is, but I'm going to say it anyway. There's Skip Bayless. Eric, you may not even know who Skip Bayless is.
Well-known TV personality, long-time loudmouth.
Yeah, so...
Why am I clueless?
I'm
he's
sorry.
Like Mike, he's like Mike and the Mad Dog. You heard of Mike and the Mad Dog in New York, right?
Are you talking to me?
Yeah. Never mind.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Look, he was just nodding blankly. It's not Patrick Ewing, so he doesn't know.
I don't know why I went there.
All right, so listen, Skip Bayless, he had this like TV hot take moment, and I'm sorry, but it's not okay. There are certain times where it is truly not okay. I don't care if you're saying, oh, it's for ratings. That dude, Skip Bayless, he may have been responsible for people committing suicide. That is, I mean, I'm just going to draw a very clear line about this. There's certain things that we must support, and we really got to get out there in front of it. So the unsophisticated answer, but it's really the best logistic one, is we've got to keep talking about it, and we have to keep supporting every single person who does it. I saw a funny meme about Simone Biles, actually, and it was about how everybody's talking about, like, oh, she needs to be tougher. And they described how this is a woman who, like, won a gold medal with, like, 3 broken toes, and, like, you know, like, toughness is not the question with Simone Biles.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to keep making sure that we keep the argument from getting framed in a given direction, and just keep focusing on the fact that everybody struggles with this stuff. Literally everybody.
And you're not the only one. I for one could say that I suffer from depression. You know, I could tell you guys clearly, I know I suffer from depression. I know there's days that I don't want to do nothing. I don't feel it. I don't, you know, and I gotta, like, it's like a constant battle with myself. And like bringing her out and then thinking about all the men that are out there that are afraid to step forward. Like, I think when we were talking, when we had the meeting yesterday, we brought up Robin Williams, which is a perfect example. You know, that was a shocker. That was like, what? The happiest person in the world, you know, the funniest person. You never saw him and nothing. And then to end the way it did, it blew a lot of people's mind. And then what I think about is, what was he going through? You know what I'm saying? What was he going through that we didn't know, and how good he was hiding it?
Well, I'm curious about this because you guys are both comedians, so you may have picked up on certain things. Like, I mean, people even say that comedians carry a lot of, like, depression inside them.
Mm-hmm. No, we do, yeah.
And
I think we do. We all do.
And so do therapists, by the way. I've had plenty.
Of course, I mean, you know, to absorb all the stuff you got to absorb, how could it not affect you?
Yeah,
right?
But you know what? Even before I started talking to other people, you know, it's one of the reasons I ended up in the field is that I had some depression. You'll hear more about that in my walk the walk for sure. Mm-hmm. But you know, I'm curious what your take was when you watched Robin Williams, because to me, there were times where he was enjoying himself, and you could tell it, and then there were other times to me where it looked like he felt the pressure to be Robin Williams, to always be funny, and just carry it and carry it and carry it.
Well, I think I loved Robin Williams since Mork and Mindy. I'm dating myself with this, but good. I've loved Robin Williams since the first day when he guest starred on Happy Days. If you really want to throw it real back, that's when he was first on television. He made Fonzie freeze. That's right, I'm that old, ladies and gentlemen.
Nanu.
I did see, when I saw his comedy specials in the 70s and the 80s, and then I looked at his last couple of comedy specials. You could tell, obviously, he was older, but I don't know. To me, he still brought the spark. To me, the one I saw that looked more tortured was more like Chris Farley. Looked more like someone that was on a downward spiral. I didn't see Robin Williams, in my opinion. I didn't see any downward spiral to Robin Williams. I mean, I know he had some bouts with alcoholism, but I always saw him as just this energetic, just making everyone laugh. Everyone loves him. That's why I was so surprised that, you know, he took his own life. I know he was dealing with a severe illness that was going to debilitate him. And I am not taking anything away from that. But you would just think that someone that has brought so much joy and you know, and it's hard, you know, it's hard to make people laugh. And maybe sometimes, I don't know, as a comedian, you use so much energy to make people laugh. Maybe people don't even take your pain seriously because you're a comedian. You know, sometimes when I'll tell somebody I'm going through something, they'll be like, man, I don't know if you're joking or not. I'm like, really? The tears aren't giving it away? You know what I'm saying? Really, I got to tell you I'm not joking. And I mean, it's really hard because no one takes comedians seriously because we're always funny. And we're wired, the way we're wired is if there's someone around us, we have to try to make them laugh. We can't just blend in a room. Comedians always, it's something about our need to express ourselves. But maybe that's why we can't express honest emotion. Edgar, what do you think? Because people just expect us to be funny.
I think we're really good at hiding our everything. You know, I don't know about you. When I hit the stage, it's like I told you, Doctor, that I'm in the now. When I'm in that stage, I'm in that present moment. Nothing else matters in life but making these people laugh. So when I heard about Robin Williams, it shocked me, and at the same time, it scared me a little because I'm that same person. I'm a comedian. I'm funny. I get on stage. I joke around. I make people laugh. Oh, you're joking. Oh my God. You know, you're always joking. But then there's days that I don't want to do it. There's days that I know that I'm hiding. That these people don't know the real me, and that's what he lived with, and he was good hiding it. He was really, really good hiding it, and the point and the purpose of this whole show is letting people know that, okay, you could hide it and get away with it, but eventually look how it turned out for him, and that's the sad part, you know. And I'm pretty sure it doesn't matter how much money you make, it don't matter how much fame you got, it don't matter how many followers you got on social media, none of that shit matters, because at the end of the day, look at him, he had it all. He was a movie star, comedian, money, he had everything. He could have reached out, he could have gotten the best help in the world and paid for it.
Let me offer an alternative viewpoint, though, that might be helpful to just kind of think about for people. Because I think that Robin Williams, when he was being funny, I don't actually think he was just hiding. I think he was in flow. He was feeling good a lot of the time, genuinely. He just also is this person who struggled a lot, and especially when he wasn't in that flow. And in fact, if you see him in his more serious roles, he's really good. In Good Will Hunting or Dead Poet Society.
Fisher King.
Fisher King, love it. There is a deep sadness in him that you can see. And I just wanted to put a plug in for the fact that we're all both. It's not one or the other. Mm-hmm. You know? I just think it's important to see that we're both.
Mm-hmm. Do you think there's a double standard that's gender-based where like men just can't be as open with this stuff as women because there's just repercussions that are built societally just because of the role of gender and what it plays, in our communities,
I mean, one thing that I've said to people before, and many people have observed this, so this isn't just me, but I think that there is a taboo against men and sadness. And interestingly, I think there's a taboo against women and anger. When a woman is angry, she gets described as being like bitchy. That's like not okay. Mm-hmm. But men, when they're sad, then they're wimps or something like that. All we have, I shouldn't say all we have to do because this is not so easy, but we do have to keep pushing against those stereotypes. I'm like the segue king today because I was like, oh man, this is a perfect segue to breaking the mold, which is our next segment. But we don't have to rush to it, but I'm just saying, I think that we have to challenge these ideas about who's supposed to be what. Even with Robin Williams, is he supposed to just be a comedian? No, he's also the other thing. I can be funny.
I'll acknowledge that. I just, in my own selfish way, I wish that other thing would have reached out for help. And the barrier was obviously not access, which to a lot of people could be a barrier to receiving care, is they just can't afford it or they can't find it. Mm-hmm. But when you have the opportunities, and in a way, Hollywood kind of celebrates famous people when they admit their flaws. Yep. In a lot of ways, no matter, they're like, oh, you're doing such a wonderful thing. So it was heartbreaking to know that and Edgar, you make a good point that, man, feelings don't come with a price tag, and they don't come with a zip code. It don't matter where you live or how much you make, man. The feelings are that strong, and they supersede all that. So it's, it just makes you think like you could have all the access and still not want to get the help. And I just hope that this show helps maybe people lean towards more getting help.
I think
Absolutely.
I think it has a lot to do with Hollywood too. When you're in that spotlight, you're in that spotlight. You say you want to please everyone. You want everybody to like you. So I think that, especially when you're in this business, it's like why you hide yourself so much as a man.
They probably don't hear the truth much either. I mean, if you're surrounded by yes people
exactly.
who only want to keep you making money, they're probably not going to care about your well-being. I mean, you could be Britney Spears' dad. Just keep him in a conservatory.
Yeah, but it goes to show you, and that and then to close this segment out and go into the next one, just goes to show you that it don't matter, what you're going through in life. It don't matter if you poor, if you're rich, if you have money, if you don't have money, fame, whatever. We all suffer from the same things, and we just need to talk about it. We need to talk about it some more. There's a documentary out there, and I'll tell the viewers, and you guys can check it out. It's on J Balvin. Dr. Dan, you know who J Balvin is?
No, as usual. And there's so many people I don't know.
Remember, we're going
He's in a tribe
remember,
called Quest.
I have a 12-year-old. Like anything that happened in these last 12 years, like I don't know what my excuse is with Bismarcky, but 12 years.
You have a 12-year-old. I don't know what's going on with me. I don't have no excuses. But J Balvin is a reggaeton artist. He's a Colombian reggaeton artist, and he has a documentary on Amazon, and it's called El Niño de Medellín. The boy from Medellín. And I suggest everybody watching right now check out this documentary, because last year he opened up on how he was suffering from depression and anxiety. And the documentary is based on this, and it will open your eyes to see how much more people are willing to help you when you open up. Not everybody knows our problems. I can't look at you and be like, okay, I know what it is. You know what I'm saying? But when you open up and you let people in your circle and people that you trust and you count, it gets better because there's no judgment in that. You know what I'm saying? So check out that documentary, that J Balvin documentary. And let's
but not
go,
before
Eric.
you finish watching this entire episode of Brothers.
That's right. We still actually. I want to ask you guys a question, because, like, in the interest of time, we do this segment, Breaking the Mold, where we talk about like the typical things that men are or aren't, and but we also do Walking the Walk. And in the interest of time, what do you guys think? Should we do a quick Breaking the Mold, or do you want to jump to Walking the Walk? What do you think we should do?
I think we should go to Walk the Walk, because that's an important part of the show. And we want to make sure we give it time to breathe.
That's what I was thinking.
What do you think, Edgar?
Yeah, well, I agree with both you guys.
All right,
we'll definitely break the mold next time. But let's.
We'll break the mold next time. Now we're gonna go into Walking the Walk. I'll introduce Walking the Walk. So Walking the Walk basically is us talking about something that's bothering us now, something that has bothered us in the past, something that we are holding inside that no one knows about us, and a moment for us to share with no judgment. You know what I'm saying? And basically, I have done it. Eric has done it. Dr. Dan did it. And today we're gonna let Dr. Dan do it again, because we feel like the last time we did Dr. Dan, we kind of rushed his Walking the Walk. So, Dr. Dan, you ready for this?
I'm ready.
I want to go like Walking the Walk. Like that. I'm gonna record that.
Have like a Johnny Cash feel to it. Walking the walk.
I walk the walk.
I walk the walk. And I talk the talk.
So Dr. Dan is gonna walk the walk, and then two comedians are gonna see how we could help the doctor out. Let's go.
All right. I did want to say, I mentioned this to you guys before, but as much as therapists have helped me, comedians have helped me even more. So thank you guys.
Because laughter is the best medicine.
Laughter is the best medicine.
That's right.
So I was thinking about this, and I was thinking, I watched the two of you speak about the things that you wanted to walk the walk about, to really, talk about these things. And I was struck by something, and I realized that it's always important to kind of think about, all right, how do I fit into all this? How do I present myself? And I realized, I don't cry much. I don't. So, like, I think when I talk about these things, it could come off as kind of more analytical or even matter of fact. And I specialize in these things. I talk about these things all the time. So it's not hard for me to talk about these things in theory. What I think is harder, certainly for me and maybe for people just in general, is to actually break out the emotion of it. And I don't know if I'll get there in this segment. But what I wanted to talk about is probably the biggest change in my entire life. This will not surprise you in theory, but I want to talk about the specifics, is when I had my first kid. And everybody talks about how it changes people and how it's a big deal, and of course it is, and our kids mean so much to us. But I went through a particular thing that I wouldn't guess is typical. I almost hope it's not typical, because it was kind of a hard experience looking back on it. So here's the thing. When I had my first kid, and I felt this again with my second kid, but the first kid was the first time that I felt it. I had a feeling that was really wonderful in relation to her. I felt that I was so much more primary to her than other people, that I was like part of the center of her world. But interestingly, it also made me feel like, oh my God, I have never been the center of somebody's world. Not in this way. Not even remotely. I have lots of friends. I have lots of people I'm connected to, but I will tell you something. I have lived most of my life building relationships that were really about, at least from my end, me taking care of the other people. I was always taking care of other people. Mm-hmm. And it's not necessarily the other people's fault at all. I'm not sure I had such an easy time letting other people care about me. I instead felt like, no, I'll manage the relationship by doing a great job taking care of you. And there are ways in which that left me feeling really alone, but I didn't understand that. So like in high school, speaking of depression, I was depressed in high school. I never had suicidal ideation in a very active way where I was ever in danger of hurting myself, really. But there were definitely times where I was like, I don't see what the point of life is. I was having some rough times at home. I loved school and I loved my friends, but I think at some level I felt very alone. And actually, when I talked about that thing with the girlfriend in 7th grade, like that was another time like that, where I was like, I thought I was connecting with somebody at some level that was bigger, but and part of what was heartbreaking is she wasn't ready for that. I mean, she was 13 years old, but like so many people weren't ready for that. And I'm not even sure I was ready to really be in a place where I could really depend on someone or just say, I need something. And it was with my daughter that I realized that. And I was 35 years old at the time. So 35 years of living on this earth. And I suddenly realized, I was like, a lot of people like me. There are plenty of people who even love me. But how many people actually know me? And how many people care about me remotely at the level I would really want them to? Mm-hmm. And this is hard to say, but at that point I realized that nobody did. At least that's how it felt to me. That nobody cared about me, even remotely at the level that I would have liked. They depended on me. They liked me, but it all felt dependent on me doing a good job supporting, or even me being funny. You know, I was always the funny one, and I'm a comedian at heart. And all of those things were good, but with my daughter, I felt for the first time, here is somebody who it's not about my performance. It's not about me doing a good job for them. There's no transaction in it. This person just loves me and sees me as center of the universe. Now, of course, You're not going to have relationships like you have with your kids, in that way. But it was a wake-up call, and it really changed my life in a way where I started thinking about who does actually value me.
Hold up.
Uh-oh. So we just lost Eric's video, but he's still here audio. But you know what? This is what I worry about. I open up to people and they disappear. Look at this.
I just didn't want you to see my face laughing, so you'd feel bad. So I figured it's just better I just put a still shot.
Well, I'm glad you're still there. So
I was getting to his point, to that peak of his moment, and then boom, Eric said, "I can't."
I'm such an attention hound. I swear.
Okay. So go ahead, Dr. Dak.
Technology was objecting to me opening up too much.
This is live, people. We're making this happen. Let's go.
So, I mean, what I was saying though is that it was a real wake up call, where I suddenly felt like, wow, all of these people that I call my friends, I kind of felt like I have to find out who they are all over again. And I started to explore that, and I found some really interesting things. And some of those people who I thought were my friends were not. They really were actually there because I provided a lot of help and support. Mm-hmm. Or maybe they just enjoyed me or whatever. But increasingly, because of this experience with my daughter, and then it happened again with my second daughter, where I was like, well, that was no fluke. This is real.
Yeah.
I just feel like I don't have time for people who are not going to value me. And I don't mean that to sound selfish, because I still go on valuing other people, but I've decided to place my value on people who I think are deserve it. And I don't mean just deserve it because they care about me, but also deserve it because they're good people. And so, but it has to be mutual. And I was kind of blown away by that. And even though I'm not showing a lot of emotion about it, I don't know if it's just because it's very matter of fact to me, but it was very painful.
Now, do you think, all right, I mean, do you think it had to do with the fact that, what happened to you at the age of 13, how you've always been the helper, like I feel the same way where I feel like I'm always helping people, but then do you think it was you building a wall where no one needed to help you?
It started much earlier than that, because I was born into a family where my father passed away when I was 6 weeks old. My mother was naturally pretty depressed during that time. My brother was having a big response to it. I think that I, in some ways, had been shut off from the world at a certain level my whole life. Up into that. So I think what you're saying is true. I'm just saying it started earlier.
It started earlier.
Listen, I just want to say, I know you've spoken to her, this girlfriend from the 7th grade, but I really want to track her down, and because she jacked you up, son. I mean, this girl did you bad.
Eric is funnier when we can't see him.
Listen, no, but Dan, in all seriousness, because I know you said you don't cry a lot, but you're a therapist, and this is a question I'd like to ask a therapist, because I don't want people to feel bad that they're not the crying type. Because, Edgar cried in episode 2, but if he doesn't stop by episode 7 or 8, he's going to have an aneurysm before the season's over. So we got to pace out his crying. I want people to know that it's okay if they're not the type to cry, that it doesn't mean the emotion isn't any less. Am I wrong about that?
No, you're not only not wrong about it, but it's similar to what we talked about with Robin Williams. It's like, we're not all one thing. I also am the kind of person who can watch Field of Dreams and tear up because the guy plays catch with his dead father at the end. Like, I will tear up about that. It all depends on what it is. I mean, I was listening to the song Mrs. Robinson, the Simon & Garfunkel song, and there was a line in it that I think is very, very powerful. I said this in another podcast, and it's the line, "Where have you gone, Joe DiMaggio? Our nation turns its lonely eyes to you." Edgar, you might even know who Joe DiMaggio is.
Yeah, I don't know. That is. Yeah, I know.
Who is it, Edgar?
He's a Yankee.
Okay, good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I realized, and I seriously, when I heard those lyrics that particular time, it hit me like a ton of bricks. Because that line for me is not just about Joe DiMaggio. That line is about my dead father. Where has he gone? Mm-hmm. And that feeling of a bygone era that I would never get to experience. So I'm like Eric, I appreciate you crack me up about the girlfriend, but she just was a repeat of things. She I didn't know it at the time, but that was just another case of, I could be primary to someone, but I'm not. Turns out I'm not. And I learned lots of lessons like that. But what I found is that in the end, the solution wasn't to hope that somebody would put me as primary, but to recognize the people who do. Because there are people who do.
And it took you a long time. I'm wondering, do you think it was the fact that you're a therapist and you're the one that helps people, that maybe, you feel, that no one really cared about you because you're the one always helping? Or
I think that I in some ways, this is not entirely true, but I think one of the storylines in my life was that I did not want to have anybody have any clue that I was hurting.
Exactly. Because how can the therapist admit that he's hurting? It's like no one ever goes to therapy and then you go and be like, "What's your problem?" And your therapist starts crying. You flip out. You're like, "Wait a second,
you're fired."
You're supposed to be the person helping me. So do you think it was because you're in this line of business that people felt that maybe you didn't need it? You know what I'm saying? And for Eric, Eric is not even a father. So,
Thanks for bringing that up, Edgar. There have been several lawsuits. I beat them all. Well, I think paternity tests do not lie. That I am not the father. The thing is, to me, it sounds like Dan's been like this before he even knew what a line of work was.
Exactly.
Dan has been an emotional. It sounds like an emotional island, so completely surrounded by emotionless water. And completely feeling like he's floating on his own life by himself, and he sounded like that's why it wasn't about that. It was a girlfriend in the 7th grade. It was to be someone's center of the universe, to be the sun that people rotate around. I think everybody needs to feel like they're the sun sometimes, and the planets are revolving around them, instead of you revolving around others. And I think you want to feel at least there's one planet that revolves around you, that counts on your gravity for their reality. And I think that grounds people, it could be 1, 2, 3 people. For Dan, it sounds like to me, it was his firstborn. It wasn't even his wife per se. Mm-hmm. I'm just, but I think that transcendent love where the planet revolves around him and he's the most important thing and nothing's more important than him to this human being. And he didn't get that from his dad, who he lost before he even knew what a dad was. I think that's the first thing you learn from parents, is that feeling like you are that planet. And I feel for you, Dan, that you were denied a lot of things that I think that a lot of people would probably take for granted at this point, just even knowing their father. So, I just want you to, I wanted to tell you as a brother in arm that, I feel what you're saying right now. And I think it's a tough road emotionally that at 35, to me, it sounds like this breakthrough that happened, but I'm so glad it happened for you.
Well, thank you, Eric. And I will tell you, you just did better than almost every therapist I've ever had.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I'll tell you why. It's because
he's in the black.
Well, you both are listening.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the therapist is too busy getting ready to say what they're going to say, just like we were talking about before. Instead, it's just about listening, and being believed. Like a lot of people will be like, "Oh, that's not true. People loved you," and none of that matters. I had an internal experience, essentially, that I was completely unloved in the way that I felt that I needed to be for 35 years. So much so that I didn't even know that you could be loved any other way. And then boom, my daughter shows up, and I'm like, the way she looks at me,
No one else will.
no one.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand, like, kids are different, and even daughters with their dads are particularly this way in a certain way, but it changed my perspective, and I now let it be more a part of my life where I actually open up to people and tell them how much I hurt. And that's what I'm trying to do here. And so, but I really appreciate what you said, Eric, and it means a lot to have people get it.
I think it's great how that we're doing this, you know, and I want the viewers at home to see that we all have different issues and different problems. And just because it doesn't seem like it's that big of a problem to someone, you don't know how that has affected, you know, that person. And, you know, and I think about when you did your first walk in the walk about the 13-year-old. We never gonna let this go. We're gonna talk about this lady forever. But
she'll always be 13 in our eyes, by the way. I don't care how old she gets. She'll always be a 13-year-old.
But it's crazy how you even said it, Dr. Dan. He goes, I don't know if people are gonna see this or see how this affected me. You know what I'm saying? And maybe some people might not get it, or maybe you were 13. How does it? But it did affect you in a way, you know, and
in every way,
and every way,
every way. I don't think there's a part of his life that hasn't been touched by that.
I know, and I think that having your daughter at the age of 35, it opened your eyes. So that was the biggest blessing. Because I tell people all the time, find someone to talk to, find someone. Not everyone is going to be in your circle. Not everyone is going to be that person for you. Not for you to let them go and not see them any less, but like you got to find that person. So having your daughter made you realize, okay, you know what? Let me reevaluate my friends list, which we should all do. We should all do. Because not, you know, I remember my mother used to say in Spanish, un amigo es un peso en el bolsillo, meaning a friend is just a dollar in your pocket. The day you have that dollar, he's there. The day you don't, he's not there. My mom always told me that, you know. So when I say this is my best friend, dude, this is my best friend. Because not everyone is a friend. We have acquaintances. But the fact that you learned that at the age of 35 is a blessing. And thank you for sharing that story with us. And you know,
walking the walk, maybe walking the walk.
Yeah. Well, thank you for walking the walk. Before we go, I know we can't see Eric because, you know.
I look much better this way, by the way. This is a much better look for me.
You know, it's also crazy, Eric. I can still see your big eyes, even though we can't see you.
It's like a Cesare cat.
but to recap before we get out of here, and next week, Dr. Dan, we'll recap about this week's walking the walk. But I want to talk about Eric's walking the walk last week before we leave, because I want Eric to share with us, how did that make you feel to finally share something that most people don't know? You know, how did you feel after your walking the walk last week, Eric?
Actually, more comfortable in my own skin, even though I wasn't terribly uncomfortable before talking about it. But talking about it just it made it more real, and it also made me more at peace. Because once something is out there, you're at peace with it. It's not something that it's hanging over your shoulder, or it's in your head, or you wonder if you'll be judged by it. You're just like, you know what? I put this out in the universe because this is who I am. And it didn't transform my life in any way, shape, or form. But what it did do was give me a little more pep in my step and just a little more peace in my mind, because I felt like I'd really gotten comfortable about an uncomfortable part of my life. And I think, and being comfortable with it now and understanding it, it'll help me avoid to repeat it, because now I kind of know what it is, and I could see the warning signs before it really takes over. So I just think that, I just think it just made me feel a little more comfortable about myself, and I can't explain why. Maybe it's just because the truth is the truth, and the truth always feels good.
Well, I did want to say, I was blown away by you both in what you talked about and how you talked about it. And I did want to say something like, we're planning to do lots of these shows together. And over time, we're going to come to get close. I know you two are already close, but it means this show means something, not just in what we talk about, but in how it actually plays out. And I know we will continue to get closer and closer. Having these conversations, hearing you guys be empathic to me about my deep suffering, because this is not the last time I'll talk about it, I promise you.
Mm-hmm.
It means a lot. So thank you both.
Oh no, thank you, man. Thank you. Thank you for being here, man. I mean, I think this is great. You know, Eric, going back to you, I mean, it made you feel more comfortable, like you said, but I think it just opens that door, Dr. Dan. You know, you correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it just, like, once you open up to someone, it's not gonna make us feel great. The problems are not gonna go away. We don't do magic, you know. But I feel like once we vent out a little, now the next time you have to do it, you won't hesitate just as much, you know.
Agreed.
So it's just a work in progress with little baby steps. You know, I go walking every weekend, one step in front of the other. That's what I keep telling myself, one step, and that's exactly what we got to see from this. You know, we're walking the walk. We're showing you the example. We're not up here just saying men need to talk. We're up here, you know, opening up ourselves to hopefully inspire other men to say, you know what, maybe I could call my boy. And
That's right, guys. Call your boys, call your friend, call an uncle, call anybody. But if you got something to say, something on your chest, get it out there, fellas. Get it out there.
Because that's all we could do, man. I would like to thank both of you brothers for being a part of this. Thank you, Greg, in the background. Remember, man, like, comment. And I want you guys, it's crazy because I feel like most of the viewers that we've gotten so far are women. And it's interesting, you know, and I did this podcast. I feel like, you know, I'm going to do it. And I wanted to, like, dedicate it to men and let men see it. But I'm realizing that we're having more female viewers. So thank you for tuning in. Because
they love some Dr. Dan.
I think it's all because of Dr. Dan and Eric's picture right now. But
Eric's still shot. Yeah,
but I want to tell the female listeners, thank you for tuning in. I hope that you pick something up from this. I hope that it makes you understand your man a little bit more.
And share it with him.
And I hope you share it with someone. I tell everyone, share it. Share it with someone you know. If you know someone is going through something, you never know. Maybe just listening to us and laughing a little and seeing how comfortable we make it seem to just let it out will change someone's life. So please comment, like, share the video. And thank you, brothers, man, for being here with me, man.
Always a pleasure.
It is a pleasure, guys.
So, brothers in arms, yo. Next week, stay tuned. Peace.
All right, take care, Dan. Take care, Edgar.
And you too. Good seeing you, Eric.
No, I can't
or
see
not
you, Eric.
Seeing you.